To summarize this all down, like what we're all experiencing right now is an interesting bottleneck. We've had some of the highest years of appreciation that we've ever seen in property, and which is compounded by a lack of household income.
Welcome back, everyone, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, I'm joined by the great Garrett Fry. He is amazing. And I am Matt Benelli. I am just trying to be just as good as him every single day.
Matt, don't. No self-deprecation here today. We are running at a high level this morning. Matt and I have had a good morning.
We have had
fired
a
up
morning.
a little bit.
We got a great episode. Before we get into it, because this is going to be a good tactical episode and hopefully will help you guys rethink how you can work with your future clients and your current clients. But before we get into it, it is that time of the year to get ready for next year. And we are going to be hosting our world famous business planning GPS workshop starting on Wednesday. So if you're listening to this, it's probably Monday. On Wednesday, it starts. Just go to 10tenths.co and there will be a pop-up. You can sign up, join in. It is an incredible value because not only are you going to get the 4-week live workshop with us with all of the stuff, and you'll have extended time afterwards to review it. You're also going to get full on access into our 11 Circle, which is our group coaching program during that 4 weeks, so you can experience everything. And if you want, you can go back and look at the recordings from all of our coaching and our success labs with people like Matthew Ferrara, Ryan Seacrest, Dan Martell, Eric Simon of the Broke Agent. So many great things in there that you're going to have access to just for signing up for our business planning. And one of the best things, this is what one of our clients said recently, which was so nice. It made me feel really good about what we built, Garrett, which is he said, the last year, it's been okay for business. He said, but going through this new version of business planning helped me get really focused on my life goals, which has led to a great 2 years overall these past couple of years. And so that's one of the best things I can say that people will take away from this, Garrett, is they're going to get not just a business plan that they're going to have to take home and figure out how to jam it into their lifestyle. They're going to get a plan that harmonizes with the lifestyle that they currently have and the one that they want to create. And so I hope that you all join us for it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, we'll have a good time. We always get good feedback on this business plan. I've been building business plans for 20 years. I've been helping people build business plans. I've seen a lot of what works. I've seen a lot of what doesn't work. So what we have here is all the best of the best pieces that bring the best quality of life, business, everything out of it. Because Matt, we've all seen people that get too hyper-focused into one side. And it's like, yeah, I had one of the best years in this, but all my other stuff over here got sacrificed a little bit. And that's not really what we're going for.
Yeah.
We need to be moving in growth and success in all aspects of our life. So that's what we're going to work on with our business plan. So come and join us. We'd love to have you. Real quick, before we get into this episode too, I was doing some research, Matt, and I have to say thank you to everybody out there who listens to our podcast. Because when I started looking at who listens to our podcast, and we're lumping you into countries, so just so you know, like we're not calling out individuals here. Obviously, United States, thank you so much. You're a huge supporter of us. We love you. Canada coming in second, right behind the United States. Here's where it gets interesting. United Kingdom. We have a whole bunch of listeners in the United Kingdom. We have a nice handful in Singapore. We've got Australia, Ireland, Japan. We have listeners in Colombia, not one, multiple listeners in Colombia. I could keep going on, but I want to say thank you to all of you out there. I saw Costa Rica showed up on here. I think there's 2 people. I know one of them. I know who you are. So I think, again, just want to say thank you. It's been so much fun as we're continuing to grow this, continuing to put out content. If you have other countries you can share this with, please do that as we're growing our country list. It means a lot to Matt and I. With that being said, Matt, let's jump into our content for today.
Well, and I encourage everybody to come and join us in our community. 10tenths.co gives you all the information. It's also where you can sign up for business planning. But even if you're not ready for 11 Circle, our inside track, which is kind of like our bonus content, which is a lot of great stuff. But when you're in the community, you have the opportunity to connect with other people in those other countries. And we encourage you all to come in there, download our app. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. And it's an amazing
the
experience.
referrals are kicking off. The referrals are kicking off inside the community. I'm watching so many referrals getting passed back and forth between people. All right. We have content. We have stuff to talk about, Matt.
We do. We got numbers. We got charts. We got data today. This is going to be fun.
You know, Matt, when the interest rates drop, this marketplace is just going to go crazy.
It's going to go crazy, which it might.
This is what inspired this episode today.
And what's so funny about this, Garrett, too, is like that statement, which a lot of people are locking onto. Man, when interest rates come down, this thing's just going to light up. It's not a false statement because it does make a lot of sense. If interest rates drop, we know the whole 110 rule. For every full percentage move in an interest rate, it adjusts a person's buying power by about 10%. So if interest rates come down 1%, their buying power goes up by 10%. That's assuming everything else stays equal. The problem is not everything else always stays equal. And so why get so locked into interest rates, Garrett, when there's other things that we also need to look at and other strategies that we can maybe address or focus on to help people get into real estate or transfer real estate without worrying about the dreaded interest rate?
Yeah, so we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that later in the episode about like what is the factor that you really should be paying attention to when you're educating your clients and helping them figure out what is the next best move for us right now. But what we do need to figure out is what are people focusing on right now? This goes to a graph that I sent to Matt, and we'll put the link to this graph in the show notes. It'll be on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, you can go click on it there in the show notes. But really what I'm looking at here is the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, Fed, that basically is, we've got our interest rates here over time. And what I thought was fascinating about this is I'm listening to everybody go, when interest rates come back down, when they get low again, and this is all like, well, what is low? What is high? What are we talking about here? And then I started to think about that really, if we look back to where our interest rates are currently sitting right now as of this recording, I'm looking at something like low sixes, maybe high fives. We're bouncing right around in there. This came up to this mark in 2022 is where we kind of bumped up to the current interest rates we've kind of been hovering around right now. Which, if you think about it, 2022 to 2025, where we're sitting right now, that's a pretty good time that it's just been kind of sitting in this realm.
Yeah.
But really, we have not seen an interest rate this high. There was a period all the way back to 2009 where we came out of an interest rate like this. 2009, we dropped down to this really low interest that, if you think about average time that realtors are in real estate, most realtors, a lot of the population of realtors, they only know selling real estate in an interest rate that's below 5%. Yeah. That's interesting to think about. You think about the transfer of homes that people buy as they're living their life. There's a good chance a lot of Americans, a lot of people did 2 sales through that time or 2 purchases through that time. Again, in their mind, this is a low interest rate. This is kind of what we're used to now. This is what we're buying and selling homes at. Refinances. Matt, you brought this one up before we were talking. Refinances. A lot of people have refinanced at this lower rate, and they're looking at this rate going, oh my gosh, this is really high right now. As I'm saying this, 2009 was when we kind of started to see an interest rate that resembles what we're in right now. If you go from 2009, oh gosh, maybe 2003 to 2009, it kind of hovered in that range. You get before that, we had not seen an interest rate like this since before 1971. We have been above 7%, pretty much all the way up until around, early 2000s. We went through a long time period there of some interest rates. Matt, if you look at these up in the range of 18, almost 20% interest rates, if you go back into the 80s. Now, there's lots of factors that cause this, but I do think we are absolutely broken of what we think normal is, what we have classified of what a normal good rate is, absolutely broken from about 2010 to about 2022.
We are. And I think and I think that we highlight the rate so much, and it's just one factor, because
Yes.
I think it's easy to say, oh yeah, back in my day, I had a 16% mortgage rate. It's like, okay, well, what was the average payment? And, what was the average household income at that time? And how does that translate to today's dollars with inflation? There's a lot of things that build into it. I will say this before going into those things. Another interesting thing, I saw this was an article back in August, but it's highlighted that about a little over 80% of Americans have below a 6% interest rate on their house right now, which the lock-in effect of that, I think, is where people are getting stuck. And they're just focusing on the interest rate. Well, why would I trade into a new house and increase my interest rate? It might increase my payment. It's like, maybe. And yes, we understand that. And, oh, well, I'm not going to get into real estate right now because interest rates are high. And it's like, interest rates can play a factor. And I think we focus so much on it because it is kind of the one thing that seems like it can be manipulated. It seems like we have control of it because we have a central bank that controls monetary policy, and they can adjust, the forecast on this thing called the Fed funds rate, which will then impact mortgage rates, which it does. It doesn't always move directly. And I think that's where people get disappointed. It's like, well, they reduced the rate. Why did mortgage rates immediately come down?
We need to come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. I mean, if you look over time, it does track, kind of. But how much movement do we really need in an interest rate? Is that really going to solve the problem? Or do we need to look at overall monthly payments and things? Because here's an interesting chart that we also can maybe throw in here is in 21 to 22, when we did have the interest rate climb, we also had a significant climb in average sales price, which compounded the effect of the average payment. And for the first time in history, in the last 30 or 40 years, the average monthly payment started to creep above this line of the median household income, at least on the way these charts are overlaid on top of each other. And that is where we get into some stickiness because, okay, well, how do we reduce that payment? Interest rate, sure. Down payment, price of home, location, all of these other factors. What about also looking at how do we increase our income? How do we save more money? These are things that realtors don't often talk about to their clients, Garrett. And so I just want to kind of set the stage here that there's a lot of factors beyond interest rate, and it just got compounded in that 21 to 22 with those price increases as well, which also correlated with the rates going up, which needed to happen for other elements of the economy as well, right? Because we put housing in a box and we go, okay, well, we need to make this affordable. It's like, yes, I get it. However, there is also the rest of the economy that we also need to pay attention to. And when we dropped Fed funds to 0, right, we also destroyed people's interest on savings and other things, which started to create this culture of let's just live monthly payment. Why do we need to save money? Can't you earn any money on these savings? Which maybe spurred some investment and everything. And I'm totally putting together, other things here. I probably need to stop talking. So,
well, so going back to one of the conversations that you just had, or the pieces you added in here, was about the Fed dropping the rate. And we have the conversations I hear around the realtor community of, if rates can just if the Fed will just drop the rate, if we can just drop the rate, we're going to have this. And then the minute they drop, everybody goes, well, doesn't everybody understand it's already baked in? It's already done. And I'm like, well, why are we talking about it so much? I mean, if it's this movement of we're getting all these people excited that the rates might drop, and then the minute they drop, you look at your clients and go, oh, but you guys got to understand it's already baked in. We're not going to see that big of a drop. And I'm like, well, just stop. Stop talking about it, please. We need to find other things to focus on that we have more control over. And I think that these elements that we start basing all these things about whether we're going to buy, whether we're going to hold, and all this that we have zero control over. This goes back to Matthew Ferrara, where are you waiting for the next wave? Is that really what you're waiting for? You're sitting there in the water on your surfboard just going, all right, I'm just going to, hopefully this happens. Maybe this happens. Hopefully this is going to change out there. Oh, stop. And so we have multiple graphs. Matt, you brought up another one for me, which talks about typical monthly mortgage payment from 1972 to 2024. And what I think is really interesting about this graph, when you look at like the monthly payments that people are spending and the money that's going out, we have a huge upkick here. We're like, I think in 2023, $2,337 a month is the average monthly house payment. And we haven't seen it that high. And this is kind of interesting back until like 1982.
Which that's crazy. Looking at that chart, I was like, wow. Back in the 80s, the typical monthly payment being over $2,000 a month. Think about that. What is fascinating though is the typical median income of a household back in 84 was 59,000. Whereas in 2024 it was 80, which is a big move, by the way. That's like a significant bump up, but the difference of carrying a 2,000 plus mortgage payment today versus at 80,000 versus 58,000, that's pretty wild.
Well, and a lot of that, we have interest rate on top of that, because again, you go back to 1980, it wasn't the value of the property that was causing those payments to be that high. That was directly driven by
rates.
interest rate.
When you have rates at 17%.
So then you go to 2012. We go from there, an average payment is $1,256. So think about that. Like that is a whole $1,000 a month less you're paying on a mortgage payment in the average household, to then right now being backwards up over $2,000 a month. Like it's a really interesting transition that's put us into the position that we're in right now. And there's a lot of factors on this. We saw home prices shoot through the roof. And I know everybody is just hanging on to like, I hope we don't see depreciation. I hope we don't see these values come down to these properties, but something's going to have to give here in some way, shape, or form, because we're out of alignment in a lot of areas. And really, interest rates are not the number one piece of the puzzle here that's causing this to be uncomfortable right now.
Right.
We had this massive run on homes. And then, Matt, I want to bring up this piece of it, which is what we really truly have control over, because I want to start to kind of talk about this a little bit. I've bought a lot of homes over my years of being a homeowner. I bought a lot of investment properties, bought a lot of personal residence. And one of the things that I've never, maybe it's just kind of where I entered the housing market, I have never gone over the side of like, right now interest rates are really good. Maybe in a little bit of the investment side, it's kind of kicked into it, but more so it's been like, no, I want to collect investment properties. I want to collect rental income. I want to be figuring that out. I've got some cash. What can we buy right now? But I don't really go, interest rates are low. I'm going to make a run at this right now. It's a benefit if they're low. What we got away from was, how much down payment can you bring to the table? And I don't find realtors talking about this a lot. I have a handful of realtors that I coach and I work with, and their number one focus with their clients is, yes, okay, so you want to buy right now. And when they start looking at homes that they're going, gosh, if the interest rate was just a little bit lower, they're going, how can we figure out how to bring more down payment to the table? Because this is what you ultimately have control over. This is ultimately what now I know people go like, but you only have so much cash. I know, but you can live differently. You can do things differently to set yourself up better, to save more cash, to put more in the bank, so that when the time comes to buy, you're not hoping for a low interest rate. You're the one in the driver's seat. That's how I've always approached real estate. That's how I've always said, if we want to buy more rental property, I need to put more money in the bank to make me a buyer of more rental property. That's the number one way I'm going to get there. We don't talk about it anymore. It's just always this thing of, when the interest rate comes down, that's when the market's going to move. No, like that you're at the mercy of what's happening out there. And so, Matt, I want to open this conversation up with you, because I think we are missing that conversation with our clients right now to put them in the driver's seat.
We are. I want to clarify one thing, because it might be a little bit confusing. And this Bankrate article that we'll link can be confusing, because that mortgage payment is also adjusted for inflation. So I do want to highlight that in the 80s, that would have been adjusted for inflation, because then they have the table below it. And I was looking at that here and I'm just like, well, that number is different than what you have in your chart. What is a really good thing to look at is what is the percentage of payment to average monthly income. And that is what is very fascinating to see that has changed in the last few years. Specifically, like 21 was similar to what the 80s were, then it just exploded in 22 and 23. And so in terms of the mortgage payment as a percentage of household income.
This is where I wish we still had the government site. It was run by PMIs, who it used to be run to, which was the Affordability Index. It was one of the best graphs that I remember being able to look at to go like, what is truly affordable? What areas are really affordable? Because right now, I guarantee you those numbers would be completely out of whack. There are some sites out there that do it right now, but that was the best one. Kind of living in the, I wish
I
they'd
think
bring back
the
good old
NAR
days.
has theirs. But here's what we need to look at, right? And this is what you brought up is, okay, there are these indexes, there are these things that say, hey, whatnot. It looks like the Fed did just start like last year doing an affordability index. So like the chart just doesn't have enough data to, I just pulled it up. I'm like, this makes no sense to me. It's like a flat line. But how do we overcome these things that we cannot control with things that we can control, and talk about how do we, marry these things of the lifestyle I want to have, the life that I want to have with my work, my income, my cash flow, with long-term wealth planning and things that I want to do. And a lot of times as real estate agents, we're just like, how do we get you into a house? How do we get you into a house? Oh, how do we adjust these things? When this brings up, Garrett, why in 22 and 23, it was very popular to talk about, hey, how can we have sellers buy down a rate? And it's coming back again. I don't know why it went away. I encourage all of our clients all the time, like, hey, if there's a way you can help make this house easy to buy, because that buy down of a rate, so to speak, which is essentially extra down payment money for these buyers, is way more impactful on the buyer while still not being as negatively impact on the seller in terms of a price reduction. Like the seller gets a higher net, buyer gets a better rate, better monthly payment because of that money going towards it. And so there's a couple of things. How do we save up for more down payment? Because we go and push all these programs. Oh, you can get a house, 3% down, 3.5% down, 0% down, which in some situations might be great. If you're going to hold for a long period of time too, that has to factor in. But how do we save up a bit more money? Who's other family members? Where are some other assets that we have available to us to potentially use, if it makes financial sense, by the way, to borrow from there to help make this happen? The gifts from grandparents. People have talked about it for the past many, many years, Garrett, that the wealth transfer isn't going to be baby boomers necessarily dying off and giving money away to their grandkids. It's going to be them pulling equity out of their paid off homes to help their grandkids and maybe kids get that down payment money, because that debt to income ratio doesn't factor into your qualification when that money's being gifted, which is very interesting. And I'm not saying we should use debt to take on debt. I'm just saying these things exist out there, right?
Well, so it's interesting as I've watched, and so I'm going to give a shout out to Joy Oda. She's an agent I've coached forever in Honolulu, and she puts together so many darn real estate transactions, Matt, that literally they're sitting there. They want so badly to buy a home in Honolulu. They want to be a first-time home buyer, or they want to be able to have that dream of having a home there. Maybe they're moving from the mainland and they want to make this be a reality. And she says the conversation I have to have so many times is, where else can you pull some down payment from? Where else can you get some money from? And we were talking to this, what kind of led into a lot of the conversation that we're having right now is, she said, the amount of times that I'll throw out, like, do you have parents you can borrow money from? And their answer is like, not really. What if they took a HELOC out on their house? And this is where you're like, I don't always recommend taking on debt to just moving money around. But yes, if they have a house that's paid off and all of a sudden they're just paying interest on maybe the HELOC over here, they're taking that money and maybe allowing you to be able to get into the home and become a homeowner, get into the cycle of being a homeowner, let's say, all of a sudden a door is opened up here. And she has put together so many deals over the years. And by the way, she has people love Joy. I have watched her build the most incredible referral-based business. And a lot of times it's because she has helped people become homeowners. She's helped people find that dream of being able to get there and get creative about it. Think outside the box. Let's look at how money works and how we can move it around. She's a master of it. And I would encourage everybody, get good at this. It's not about talking people or convincing people or forcing them into buying a house at all. It's about giving them options to say, what if you tried this? What if you did this? What if you approached it from this way over here? And then all of a sudden doors start opening up. All of a sudden it's like, well, maybe we could do that. And, you know, you got to be willing to look outside the box right now, because again, this goes back to Matt, what do we actually have control over?
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I know we have definite 100% control over, is where can we figure out how to increase this money that we're working with up front.
Yeah, we have control over that. We have control over, and I'm talking about the individual buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
Have control over the personal lifestyle that comes along with that. And also their perspective on what is truly valuable to them. This is why the upfront conversations of setting the vision of like, what does this home ownership mean for you? What are the whys behind the what, so that we can get at the core of, because maybe the why can be found in a home that's $100,000 less than what you're saying you need to purchase at. I'd also encourage agents at this time, like, seek out financial coaches. Read the books about money management, about personal finance. Not only would it be great for you, I mean, I love consuming this stuff because I used to have terrible personal habits with personal finance. And I worked on Wall Street. Like, aren't we supposed to know about that stuff?
You should know better, Matt.
Apparently not. And these are things that we all struggle with because money becomes this thing. But once you start to look at it as a tool versus this thing that controls us, it gets a lot easier to understand where we can move stuff. Because I've even seen agents working with people like, I don't know, like they're not even qualifying. It's like, well, what are they driving? Do they have a lease? Do they have a high payment? Maybe they can sell that car and buy a different car, which may or may not change what their financial obligation would be in terms of maintenance and other things. But when you have the average car payment sitting around, what is it now? Over $750 a month is the average new car payment. That eats into your debt to income ratio when all of a sudden the average mortgage payment is over $2,000 a month. Yeah, no kidding. It's going to be really tough to qualify.
But so this goes back into like getting smart with your money. I love that you brought up like get a financial coach. You as a real estate agent, get smart about this. At the same point, bring that wealth of knowledge back into your clients. I don't see first-time homebuyer classes being done like we used to. The education of how do you become a homeowner, the education of how do you smartly move money with real estate, we're not doing those classes like we used to back 10, 15 years ago. I remember seeing them all the time. Realtors would sit down and educate their people on this. We're not doing it at the same rate. And the same way that Joy Oda is saying, hey, where can you borrow money from? She has a belief, like her personal belief, is I'm not talking about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Like she's taught multiple thousands of dollars is what her mindset is, that she sets aside every single month. She lives really below her means. So she creates this education level for her clients of like, don't live up here. Like you can, I get it. You're making great money. You got all this stuff. Sock that money away over here so you can buy assets. And that's where her mind goes with her people. Get into assets instead of into really nice cars. I mean, car wise, I'm kind of a interesting example of it. Cause if you drive by my house, you'd be like, dude has a problem. It's okay. I'll take it on. I own 8 cars. I love my cars. I love driving different cars. I love everything about it. I have 0 car payments. that is my thing, is because I am not actually going to ever spend, in my world, the way I look at it, I don't spend money as much as I can and avoid it if I can. I don't like spending money on depreciating assets. I don't like having monthly interest payments, at least interest that's going out on depreciation. If I'm going to spend money with interest, with borrowed money, it better be for an asset in my world that's improving my wealth, improving my future. We don't talk about that enough. And I think us as real estate agents is helping people with buying homes, building their future, building investments. This is the voice that we need to start having, not hopefully the interest rate's going to come down and that's what's going to make this work right now. There's more real estate to be done out here right now. There are people that want to buy, but they're not being educated properly on what they should be doing to have that success in the future.
Yeah.
We're kind of winging it right now, I feel.
Well, and I get it that as realtors, we're focused on helping people go through that process. That's our role, right? Which makes a lot of sense. But if you're frustrated why people are having these conversations saying they want to, but they can't, then let's ask more questions and understand what's going on. And I think this comes to, well, where does this happen, Garrett, right? Because there is helping somebody right now find that extra cash for a down payment that can completely change what they're doing. I think there's an opportunity on the seller side to say, hey, how can we offer some rate buy downs and things that, yes, we're focused on that rate, but now we have control of manipulation of that rate right now for someone that could change the affordability of this home for them. But then there's also the, how are you educating your database, your sphere over time so that they can look and say, hey, you know what? Our kids in 5 years might be thinking about buying a house, or hey, you know what? I do want to get some control because maybe we could buy another house to help build some wealth for us. Or, you know, we just bought a house 2 years ago, but 10 years from now, we're probably going to want a different house. What are the changes we can make? And this is where connecting with financial coaches, financial advisors, understanding the content that they're putting out, sharing that value into your sphere will help them prepare, right? There's a big segment of realtors that do credit repair, talk about credit repair, which to help them get approved, which is a great short-term option for helping people get approved for more debt, which seems crazy if they're having trouble paying the debt that they already have. But that said, it's great to do that. There is a large segment of the population, though, that has great credit scores, but have massive credit card debt and other credit-based debt that they are just being, drowned in. And so it's how can we help those people start to climb out of that? Because as housing prices have risen, so has household debt, so has credit card debt. And we've talked about that before. And carrying 22% interest rate on uncollateralized debt is crazy. It's costing people thousands of dollars a month, which could be going towards a mortgage payment on an asset that is appreciating long-term because, well, credit card debt, there's no asset behind there that's going to be
Matt,
worthwhile.
Everything you just said, all these elements from all these different debt areas that are building up and growing for people, all of the monthly payments that they're just kind of stacking on for a lot. I've been watching this for a while, and here we have a lot of realtors that I work with out here right now saying, gosh, I feel like my buyers are just kind of like, they're not really quick to make decisions, or there's a lot of work right now. They're overthinking a lot of stuff. They're probably maxed out trying to figure out how to make this work in this world that's kind of been created around them right now. A lot of it barely self-imposed that they could probably get their hands on and reduce some of the actual money going out. But I think there's a lot of people that are literally pushed to their limits out here right now. And yeah, it's tough. I was talking to a lender here just recently, which, by the way, I'm recommending to everybody. Get on the phone with your lenders, learn from them, hear what they're seeing out here right now. But I was talking with him, and he said, yeah, deals are happening. It's a little bit slower. And I said, what are some trends that you're seeing right now? He goes, I have not seen debt-to-income ratios as high as I'm seeing them right now in like a long time. Like, it's making us have to get creative for people who are really pushed. We're having to get co-signers and things along those lines. Mm-hmm. Like that, these are buyers that are pushed to the limits, and they want to be buyers. They want to move forward. And the crazy thing about the lending world, and I've always kind of it's kind of, I don't know, it's been like a thorn in my side for a long time, is going in, getting approved for a loan. And my wife and I have always looked at each other and like, they're going to approve us for that. Like I'm never taking on that monthly payment like that would put us into a house poor situation so quickly. But it very rarely is it talked about like, just because you might get approved for it doesn't mean you should go take that on. Doesn't mean that that's the smart answer for you. But because they get approved for it, they go, oh my gosh, somebody thinks this is a good idea, that we should borrow that much money and we should have that monthly payment. Like, we should do it. Look at the house we can afford. Can you though, really? Like, is it a comfortable affording? Is it because they said, yeah, we'll accept the risk on you. Like, we think you're good. You won't default on this. You got good credit history. You'll live up to the debts that you've taken out on you. Yeah, we'll take that risk. We give a lot of faith that other people are watching out for us in this world. This is where having some financial literacy, this is where being a realtor that actually goes and learns for yourself, learns from your lenders of what's going on, and then come back and educate your people. Matt, I love where you went with that, because I think it's something that all of us could be doing more for our clients. We could be doing more of it for our people. We got to get some financial coaches in. That's what we got to do, Matt.
I agree. Well, hey, we do have a great book of the month right now.
Yes.
Money Unmasked by Garrett Gunderson. And I think that this brings up, Garrett, too. I think when you look at the debt industry, loans and all this stuff, it's all based on numbers. Like, there's no emotion baked into it at all. Banks are doing their risk assessment. Mortgage companies are doing their risk assessment, and they're looking at a large scale risk of this person versus this person. So when this individual gets approved for something, they're like, wow, they're approving him for that. It's like, yeah, because on the grand scheme, maybe that person does default. Most mortgage companies are going to resell that loan into the secondary market anyway. So their whole business is mostly processing loans, right? And then making the profit on the sale of that mortgage out into the secondary market. And so when you start to look at that, it's not necessarily that they don't have your best interest in mind. It's that they're just working off of numbers. And I think this is where having a conversation, and this is hard as a real estate agent to approach clients with this, but just saying, hey, let me just ask you, if you're struggling with figuring out your buying power here, tell me a little bit about what's going on in your personal cash flow world, right? And maybe we can sit with the lender and talk about that if that's a more comfortable thing. I don't have the answers for you, by the way, but if we just start talking about it, maybe it'll help us realize some things that we can look into and figure out if we can get creative, and if that creativity makes sense for you based on your life goals and your current cash flow situation. Because you're right, Garrett, we don't want to be house poor. And everybody will say, well, but real estate's always an appreciating asset. You're always going to do well when you buy into real estate. Oh, you bought before 2020? That was a smart move. That wasn't smart. That was just timing. Like, who knew that prices were just going to explode after COVID? Nobody knew that. It wasn't predictable. That said, once you're in the real estate game, there is an advantage there, because now you have equity that can be moved from property to property. But the one thing that I see a lot of people say, look at all the equity, you're rich. It's like, yes, comma, that equity is mostly now used for future home ownership. Like, people move equity from one home to another until they die. Pretty much. That equity rarely gets pulled out and then used in the consumer marketplaces. And that's something to consider. So if that's the case, then there's never a bad time to get into home ownership, because that equity fluctuation will happen no matter what. So stop trying to time that and instead look at the holistic financial picture for your people, help them just see it. Because listen, here's the other thing. As realtors, Garrett, as coaches, we're not going to solve the problem. It's going to be the individual that's going to take that information and solve the problem for themselves, which is going to make them a better buyer, make them a better seller, so that you as a realtor is going to be able to advise them better through a transaction and focus just on that without worrying like, oh, you just bought a car before closing? Thanks.
Well, and I think that to summarize this all down, like, what we're all experiencing right now is an interesting bottleneck. We've had some of the highest years of appreciation that we've ever seen in property. which is compounded by a lack of household income. We've actually seen household income decline. So we got those two things going the absolute opposite directions. And then all of a sudden, when you go from we got down into the 2% interest rate range. When you go from something like that, then back up to 7, it hurts. It hurts real bad. It's real scary. We start walking around going, how can the average person actually buy a home in this market nowadays? And the reality is, yes, all we can hope for is the interest rates come back down. That's the number. That's why we're hearing it all the time right now. And I want you to take a step outside the box and go, how can I look at this a little bit differently? How can we start educating people better? Because the likelihood that house prices could come down to offset this situation, that's a reality. That's something we all need to understand, is that if household incomes can't keep up with the payments and people keep going underwater in debt, credit card debt, all these things start piling up, there's a certain place here where sellers are going to be putting their homes on the market and they're going to be going, I don't have a buyer that can buy because the buyers are drowning in debt. They don't have the interest rates right now that will allow this. But you know what? I got to move. I got to go. And what happens is all of a sudden they sell, and that data point now becomes a comp that we're going to look at for that house in that marketplace. And we're going to be like, well, this is what it last sold for. So now we got to put your home on the market, and we're working with this comp that's out here. And you get enough of those, and you'll start to watch the marketplace move in a different direction. Something's going to give around all this. It's not a negative thing in are you going to be successful with real estate? I'm not worried about that at all. All this means properties are going to be changing hands. People are going to be moving, but we have to educate people better. We have to help them make smart financial decisions, because the CEO at the bank who's approving you for this great loan, the CEO actually has no hand. All he's looking at is risk. He's looking at risk assessments, by the way.
Yeah.
That's all he's doing. Do we have risk assessments that are going to make our bank be able to survive and move forward? They are not looking at oh my gosh, look at how many people that we were able to make homeowners this week. They're not looking at that. They're looking at how many loans did we process? Were they risky, or we work inside of our limits? Great. Let's do more of those. Let's figure that out. A lot of pieces to look at here, Matt. I really enjoy going down this. I'm happy we got a chance to talk about this today.
Well, and I want to just highlight this one thing. You mentioned housing prices coming down. People are like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And it's not actually, because the truth probably is, I don't have a crystal ball. If housing prices come down nationwide, it's not going to be like, oh man, that's a lot. But if you think about that 110 rule that we mentioned at the front, 1% interest rate change correlates with about a 10% adjustment in buying power. 10%, right? So what if housing prices just move 2 or 3% or 4%, right? That's a lot for a buyer. That changes dynamics significantly for them in a great way, because how much room do we really have in interest rates? We have to think about that. How much room is there really from a broad economic perspective to move interest rates? Because there's other things to consider, whereas the housing prices, that is going to be specific to the housing market. And if anything, a housing price is going down slightly, if you're already in the game and you're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Nope, totally fine. Remember, equity transfer, it'll all play out just fine. The minute it starts happening, it stings a little bit. But that can bring new homeowners into the marketplace, new first-time buyers coming in, which all of a sudden is going to create more demand, which will be a short-lived downturn to push those prices back up based on simple economics. But it'll also help people get into homes at lower payments, which then keeps more cash available for them to put into the economy. There's just a lot of good things that can come out of that as well. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. In fact, all indicators are showing that housing prices are going to continue to go up at a kind of normal appreciation rate. But in those little pockets and those niches, don't worry about it.
But and so Matt, I love that you said the normal appreciation rate, is that there's a lot of things that we have a little bit of a broken understanding of what is kind of a healthy, normal thing that allows the economy to be able to survive. And we think that a 15% 15% appreciation rate is like, whoa, look at how great this is. As a homeowner, yes, it's really exciting. As somebody who's building their business around real estate, it's like, guys, it's like, just It's like running a marathon at a full sprint, and at some point you are going to burn yourself out. Like, pace yourself here a little bit. Like, things have to grow with each other. We have to be able to bring the whole thing up to make that actually be a successful model. And I've watched the appreciation rates here for a while and going like, this is not healthy. Like, you can't keep growing like this and have an economy that's not growing with it and go, this is a good thing.
We get stuck on these actual dollar values a lot of times because that's the easiest way for us to give perspective than percentages. Because you see, when housing prices were averaging in the 200s and they exploded to the high 300s and now into the 400s, it's like, whoa, big percentage move and also big dollar change. Now, when we see the same percentage move, but it's a smaller dollar change, or no, the same percentage move would be a bigger dollar change, which would be crazy. So we see like back to like normalized percentage moves, but we're like, oh, but it's not that dollar change that I was looking for. And it's like, wait, but it's still, our perspective has shifted. So
here's the thing, as I think that, do I think we're going to see is massive decrease in home values out there? I actually don't think we're going to see it. Everything that I'm looking at doesn't, but I do think for the health of the housing market in our world, we do need to flatline for a little bit, not die. Don't mean flatline like no pulse. Like, I'm saying, like, it definitely needs to slow way down here for a little bit for house appreciation to make all these things start to be able to come back into norm, for people to get some of their other debts under control, for people to be able to settle things down a little bit here, hopefully bring household incomes up a little bit, whatever that looks like. Things need to adjust a little bit because it can't keep going the way that it was going, even though it sounds really good to be like, when is that going to come back? It's like, that's not really what you should be hoping for at the moment.
And the last element I'll throw in, Garrett, before you wrap it up, is that as an individual agent, you don't need the entire marketplace all of a sudden to become available with buyers and sellers. Like, this is information not necessarily to create more transactions in the overall marketplace, although it can. I do feel that every single year there are people who don't buy or sell real estate because they don't have a good quality conversation with their realtor. And that's the opportunity for you to have good quality conversations. So for the people who do want to make a move and have the means to do so, actually feel confident in what they already know to be true for themselves because they had a great conversation with you as their realtor. And so that's what I encourage you guys to do. Don't worry about those big macro numbers. Focus on your micro people, have these great conversations, and you'll have plenty of business for yourself, and you're going to have some really happy clients.
100%. Matt?
Cool.
What a great conversation. Thank you, sir.
Good.
This was super fun to go down this route. It was one of those, I felt like we just kept adding little chunks onto the end. But with that being said, for those of you that are listening, if you found value in this, share it. If you're not on YouTube with us right now, come subscribe on YouTube. It helps us out so much in all of our algorithms and getting this out to people. We'd really appreciate it. If you want to come join us for business planning, we're super excited to have you with us. 10tenths.co is where you can go to. There will be banners and flashing things. Well, I don't know. It may not be flashing, but there'll be things that when you get on there, you're going to be like, that's the business planning that Matt and Garrett are talking about. That's what I need to go check out. And when you come and join into business planning now, we're going to let you have access into our full community for that time of business planning. So not only will you get business planning, you're going to get access into all the amazing people that are in our world all the time. You'll have abilities of asking questions about business planning, things you're working on. Like, you're not in this alone. We develop this community to make sure that nobody is going alone if you don't want to go alone. We have great people out here. Matt, appreciate you, sir, and appreciate all of you and all over the world. I'm going to continue checking on those numbers. I love seeing our numbers grow. We have nobody in Russia, by the way. We have any people in Russia that want to check out our podcast? Maybe translation, maybe.
Maybe.
We'll figure that out.
Maybe that's the next thing for Life at 10 Cents, is available in 20 or 30 different languages.
I think we can actually do that easier than you think. All right, we're gonna circle back around on that. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. Thanks, Matt.
Take care, guys.